I'll start with the first one here. Kinetic energy of that photoelectron of that photoelectron versus this is frequency of incident radiation. So here kinetic energy, it will be having some value 0 until and unless this frequency of incident radiation become equals to until and unless it becomes equals to that of threshold frequency. So up to certain point, let's say this is here I write this is mu naught. Is that correct? Now at this certain point, up to this certain point, kinetic energy, it will be 0, correct? Then afterward, as we are increasing frequency, this kinetic energy we can write in this manner. Or simply, if I want to define kinetic energy here, we have defined h mu is equals to h mu naught plus kinetic energy, or this kinetic energy I can write it as h mu minus h mu naught. Doesn't it resemble with the y is equals to mx plus c, where m is slope of the line, on x-axis we have taken frequency, c is intercept on y-axis, right? Intercept on y-axis, that is coming out to be a negative value like this if I extend this curve. Isn't that right? Slope of the line, that will be coming out to be h. Is that correct? Or here if I want to write, let's say this is the curve we are obtaining, like that. If I am writing this is theta, tan theta I can write as m, or simply I can write it as h. Is that right? Any confusion, any doubt with this curve? Up to this point, kinetic energy, it will be coming out to be 0. Then after this, as we are increasing frequency, kinetic energy, it will increase gradually. Correct only? Next here again, kinetic energy of that photoelectron, it will be independent of intensity of radiation. Here I write intensity of incident radiation. Incident radiation. For in this intensity, it is independent of frequency, or frequency will be constant. So for constant frequency, this kinetic energy can have any value like this. No matter whether you are increasing intensity, whether you are changing intensity of radiation, kinetic energy, it will be coming out to be same. Is that clear? Any confusion, any doubt? Don't get confused here. So what we can write, kinetic energy of photoelectron ejected photoelectron is independent of intensity of incident radiation. That's what we can say. Any confusion, any doubt? Next one. But number of photoelectrons, here if I take number of photo electron ejected versus intensity of light, that will be, as this intensity it will increase, number of photoelectron ejected, that will also increase. Means you can write number of photoelectron ejected is directly proportional to intensity of light or radiation incidented. Clear? These are some of the graphical representation of this photoelectric effect. Again, just like this, we can define a graph for kinetic energy versus wavelength of incident radiation. That also we can do, right? Any confusion, any doubt? So here, next I'll start with Bohr's model. Before starting Bohr's model, let's understand a few things. First, the limitation of Rutherford's model. We will start with that. Why we required Bohr's model? Because Rutherford's model, it was failed to explain various things, such as it was failed according to Max Planck's quantum theory, right? So why it was failed, we will start with that. And if it was failed, now if a theory is failed, which means it cannot explain all the parameters which we were trying to define, correct? So we need a new theory which can explain those failures of that previous theory, right? So let's start with that failure, so that we can understand why we need a new theory and how we will overcome through these failures, right? So here, let's say there is this electron revolving around this nucleus. What Bohr said, he said that what Rutherford said, according to Rutherford, electron will be revolving around nucleus in arbitrary orbit. Means any random orbit it will be revolving, right? Which was wrong according to Planck's theory. How it was wrong and what new things we obtained, that we are going to discuss. So here, let's say this is the electron revolving around this nucleus, having, let's say this is the velocity of that electron at some certain distance r, right? So on this electron itself, basically that is a charged particle, and on the nucleus I write, this is the nucleus, the charge present on nucleus is plus z plus Z into E is charge present on electron or proton, and Z is atomic number, means number of proton present in the nucleus. Charge present on electron, that is minus E, right? So here there are some forces acting on this electron. We need to understand those forces first of all. What kind of forces are acting? First force is radial, is present in radially outward direction. We call it as centrifugal force, which is m, mass of electron, that electron which is revolving, which is having a circular motion. If it is having a circular motion, then the centrifugal force, it will be acting radially outward direction, and its value will be mv square upon r, where r is the distance at which this electron present from the center of this rotation or this circle, okay, or this orbit. Next force, this is one of the centrifugal force. Second one, next is there will be electrostatic force of attraction will be there between this electron and the proton present in the nucleus, which I will write as here. Electrostatic force of attraction will be there, which I can write as K Q1 Q2 by R square, similar to that of gravitational force, you can understand, where Q1 and Q2 are charges, R is the distance, K is the electrostatic constant, which again I can write it as electrostatic force, I can write as 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. Last class, if you remember, I have told you that K value, it is a constant whose value is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught, or simply I can write K is equals to 9 into 10 to the power 9 Newton per coulomb square meter square, right? So here into Q1 is charge present on the nucleus. Charge present on the nucleus is Ze. Q2 is charge present on the other species, which is electron, right? That is E only. So I can write it as Q1 into Q2, that will be coming out to be Z E square upon R square. Isn't that right? Now, if this electron is revolving around the nucleus in this particular orbit, so in this arbitrary orbit, even if it is moving in arbitrary orbit, these two forces, they must be balanced for the time being. When at this particular position, when I am saying these two forces, they are balanced right now. Any confusion, any doubt up to here, which means at the given moment this kz e square upon r square is equals to mv square upon r, correct? Now according to Planck's theory, we say that this accelerating charge, it will radiate, it will emit energy in form of radiation. It emits some energy in form of radiation. Is that correct? Now this electron, when it was moving, it was having some kinetic energy. Kinetic energy I can write as half mv square. Let's say 100 unit of kinetic energy this electron was possessing. Now if it is radiating some energy, means some energy loss it will suffer. Isn't that right? So if it is suffering some energy loss, let's say its kinetic energy, it decreases by 10 units. Let's say it has lost some 10 units of energy in form of radiation, which means now its energy, it has decreased. Let's say its kinetic energy, it has decreased. Now if its kinetic energy decreases, which means will its mass will decrease? Mass is constant. Mass will not decrease. Mass cannot change in this particular process. Mass can change when we are talking about energy mass conservation. Here that kind of phenomena, it won't take place, right? So mass is not changing. So what other species is present which can change? That is velocity, correct? So if kinetic energy is decreasing, we can write its velocity, it will decrease. If its velocity is decreasing, which means this value of mv square by r, mass is constant, r is this distance, right? Now at this particular distance, this mv square by r value, whether it will decrease or not, just think about it. Is that correct? This mv square by r value will decrease. So if this mv square by r value is decreasing, initially we were saying that this electrostatic force and the centrifugal force both are equal. Now what will happen? Its value is not changing, but its value is decreasing, which means after some time this electrostatic force, it will become stronger than that of the centrifugal force. So now this electron, it will start to get, see, one force is acting radially, acting in radially outward direction, one is acting in radially inward direction, correct? So because of this force, what will happen, this electron, it will start to move towards this electron in this way. And ultimately it will fall inside the nucleus. Say yes or no. That was failure of Rutherford's model. So now if it was failed, means this electron will be revolving around nucleus in arbitrary orbit. That is wrong, first of all. So here the first postulate of Bohr's model comes, that instead of this arbitrary orbit, this nucleus, it will this electron, it will be revolving around the nucleus in stationary orbit. This is first postulate of Bohr's model. So from here, first time this definition of stationary orbit came into the existence. Now what is the stationary orbit, that we will understand. Okay, so this is limitation of Rutherford's model, and from here we start Bohr's model. If you have any confusion, any doubt, you ask. Okay, take 1 minute and go through this part which we have discussed quickly. It not even explain yes, it will not even explain line spectrum. This is one of the drawback I have taken, so that we can start with the another theory. I'll be starting with this limitation itself. There are a number of limitations in Rutherford's model, as we discussed in last class, right? It will not even explain the line spectrum of hydrogen. But right now we are not aware of line spectrum, that's why I'm not taking that limitation for time being. Done. So I'll start with this. Bohr's atomic model. Now there are some postulates related to Bohr's model. One of those important one I'll discuss with you, and then we will move on towards this structure of atom or this atomic model. First one, electron, which we defined at the time of this limitation of Rutherford's model. So first one is electron revolve around nucleus in a fixed or stationary or predefined circular orbit of definite energy, means its energy has been defined, it will remain conserved, okay, with the definite energy, and conserved energy will be conserved. That's what we are saying. Second one, it is quite important. Here we'll write angular momentum of electron revolving around nucleus in stationary orbit is also conserved, and it is integer multiple of h cross, or h cross I can write as h upon 2 pi, where h is Planck's constant. Okay, so basically I'll start with momentum itself. I'll explain what does it mean. See, momentum is nothing but mass into velocity. Change in momentum per unit time defines the force applied by an object on another one, right? Or it is basically the force experienced by an object by another object. Okay, so momentum, we are saying that it is mass into velocity. So different type of momentums you can say. For example, linear momentum. Whenever a particle is having linear motion, then that momentum associated with that particle or that object, it will be called as linear momentum. That is m into v. V is the linear velocity. Second one, if it is having a circular motion or angular motion, in a circular motion, the angular momentum associated with that particle, it will be mass into angular velocity. Now angular velocity is defined as omega. So this angular momentum, it will be coming out to be m omega, and this omega for a circular motion, let's say I am defining a circular motion in this manner. This will be the linear velocity, and here I define this is angular velocity omega. This is some distance r. So omega we can write as v into r, this angular velocity, or this angular velocity, just like velocity you used to define v is equals to dx by dt, or change in displacement per unit time you used to define. Similarly, omega you can define as d theta by dt, right? If you take small angle, you can easily define that this d omega for this particular part, that will be coming out to be this, you can take as a linear part. This is theta, d theta by dt. If you are going to calculate, that will be coming out to be v into r only. Okay, so this is the part about angular velocity omega. In detail you will discuss about this angular velocity in circular motion. Okay, in physics I think your next chapter will be circular motion itself, so you will discuss it in detail that time. So now here we are saying, so angular momentum, it can be written as m omega, or omega in terms of this linear velocity. I'll be defining things in terms of linear velocity only. So this angular momentum I can write as mvr. Is that correct? That will be integer multiple. Let's say n is an integer multiple of h cross, or simply I can write nh upon 2 pi. This is the second postulate of this Bohr's model. Niels Bohr, he observed that angular momentum, it will be conserved and it will be an integer multiple of h cross. Experimentally, he was unable to define this expression throughout his life mathematically. He was unable to define. See, the first one, it can be defined very easily. But second one, defining mathematically, Bohr was unable to do that throughout his life. Later on, de Broglie, when he came up with his dual nature theory, with the help of that dual nature theory, we were able to define this angular momentum. Yes, it is correct only. With the help of that dual nature theory, we were able to define that yes, angular momentum is an integer multiple of h cross. Okay, so this mathematical part of the second postulate we will be discussing when we will discuss de Broglie's relationship. Okay, so up to these two postulates, I guess there should not be any doubt. I'll be cleaning this whole part, so if you want to note down anything, you just do it quickly. I'll give you 20-30 seconds. Do it. I guess done. Next one. So if it is a stationary orbit, for example, let's say there is this object, थोड़ा इसको ऐसे ले लेते हैं. Let's say this is a wooden box lying on this surface, horizontal surface. There is this force F1 acting on this wooden block from this side. Let's say the surface is frictionless, no other forces are acting here. Mass I have taken as m, and here this F2 force is acting. Let's say some values you can take, 10 Newton, 20 Newton, like that. So F1 and F2 are acting on this wooden box. When I will call this wooden box to be stationary, it is having stationary circular orbit, means that distance from nucleus, it will be same. Correct? Means if you are having this as your stationary circular orbital, this distance r, it will be constant, it will remain same. Correct? But it is having this motion. So if I say that, let's say this is the center, from this center, when this distance of this object won't change, or when I will call this m to be stationary, just think about it. When F1 is equals to, magnitude of F1 is equals to magnitude of F2. Say yes or no. Any confusion, any doubt? Is that correct? Correct only. So here I'll clean this one. So if this electron is revolving around the nucleus in stationary orbit, which means all radial forces are balanced. All radial forces are balanced. Any confusion, any doubt? Then what we can say, energy of a given shell is fixed. Energy of a given shell is fixed, which mean the energy of, or the electron revolving around the nucleus in that shell has got fixed energy. Okay, fixed for given shell or orbit. Okay, now these are some of the postulates, but we don't understand that much from these postulates. We need to understand the structure of atoms, how these postulates will help us to understand the structure of atom that we are going to define. So thing is, we have already defined that atom, it is something where there is a small concentrated part at the center of the atom, which is called as nucleus, and all the positively charged species and all the heaviest or heavier species like neutron and proton, they are situated at that center. Means position of proton and neutron has been already defined, that they lies at the center of the nucleus, center of the atom in the nucleus. Their position is fixed. So when we have to define the structure of an atom, the position of neutron and proton is already defined, but the thing which we don't know, that is that very small species, electron, very light species, almost 1800 times lighter than that of proton or neutron, moving with very high velocities. We don't know its position. Why? Because we know that apart from that very small concentrated part, nucleus, 99% space is vacant. Now in that 99% space, those very small particle, very light particle electrons, they can be anywhere. Correct? So now we need to define position of those small particles which are moving with very high velocity. So that we need to figure out. Means if we define that at what distance an electron is revolving around the nucleus in that circular orbit with what particular velocity and what particular energy, then we can define structure of atom. Isn't that right? So that's what we are going to do now. Okay, so for that I'll again start with this particular part. Nucleus, this is radius Rn, I'll write. Let's say nth shell I have taken, radius is defined as Rn. Let's say velocity I define as Vn. Charge is E negative. Charge present on nucleus plus Ze. Z is atomic number, right? So here mv square or mvn Rn you can write. Second, this F2, or let's say F electrostatic, Fe I can write as kz E square upon R square. So according to first postulate, we can write it is this electron, it will be revolving around the nucleus in stationary orbit, and with the help of third postulate we can easily say that if radial forces, they are balanced, which means this kz E square by R square, that will be mv square by R square. I'll just write V square, V or R. Basically they are Vn and Rn. Vn is velocity of electron in nth orbit, R is radius of electron in nth orbit. Straight away I'll just write V and R. You just consider them that this is Vn and Rn only. Okay, so now this is the first expression we are getting, equation number 1. Equation number 2, second thing what he said that angular momentum, it will be conserved. mvr is equals to, or mvn Rn is equals to, m is mass of electron, n h cross or n h upon 2 pi. That is second expression, right? Now what I said, what will be our motto? Our motto is to calculate this radius, this velocity, as well as energy associated with that electron. That's what we are trying to figure out. Isn't that right? So now we have two equation and we have two variable, velocity and radius, correct? So we can take expression for one of the variable from one expression and we can put it in the second one. So I could write velocity can be written as nh upon 2 pi m into r. We can put this expression into the first one, equation 3. Putting equation 3 in equation 1, what we are going to obtain? We can write kz e square by r. Here my mistake, this is mv square by r. So kz e square by r can be written as m. V square value I can write nh upon 2 pi into mr whole square, or I could write directly value of r from this expression. Can I open this expression? If I open this expression, I'll obtain r will be coming out to be n square h square upon 4 pi square k z e square into m. Check whether it is correct or not. Is that correct? Any confusion, any doubt? Correct only. So now I'll take this expression once again here. Let's say I write r is coming out to be n square h square upon 4 pi square k z e square m. Let's write these variables or the known things. H is what? Planck's constant. We know its value 6.626 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. Value of pi we know 22 by 7. Correct only, लिखने की ज़रूरत तो नहीं है. Let's say I clean this one. Next value of k we know, that is 9 into 10 to the power 9 only. Newton coulomb square per meter square. Sorry, Newton meter square per coulomb square. Right? Then z value, it will be depending upon the element which we have taken. Next E, that is charge on electron or proton. Magnitude of charge present on electron or proton. We can write it as 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. I could even write here magnitude of charge. Sign will be different, right? M, mass of electron, which is 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kilogram. Correct? Here I forgot one thing, I'll just add it here. Fifth one, applicable for single electron species.
Yes, I want to. You're starting to
Basically that is hydrogen or hydrogen like species such as hydrogen helium positive, lithium dipositive, beryllium tripositive. Now that is another postulate, and ultimately this postulate, it will become limitation of Bohr's model later on. Okay, now again coming back to our that part. So guys, just tell me, we know value of all these things. If I put all these values here, these values, they will be same for any element which you take, correct? So if I put all these values in this expression, this value of r, I can write it as r comes out with some constant, let's say c1 into n square by z. Say yes or no. And if I calculate this value of c, can I write it as 0.529 angstrom? That will be same for any element or any species. Is that correct? Now radius is equals to some constant into n square by z, where n is the number of orbit, okay, which will be either 1, 2, 3, means an integer value, right, by this z. Now for a particular element, r will be directly proportional to n square for a particular element. Like for hydrogen, radius of hydrogen of different orbits, that will be directly proportional to n square, means it will increase exponentially with increase in number of shells, correct? So here I could write r is directly proportional to n square by z. We can say that with increase in number of shells, this value of r, it will increase exponentially. Isn't that right? Any confusion, any doubt that we can say? Now let's take a few problems. So here I'll suggest you that this is a huge formula. Memorizing this kind of formula, it will be very difficult. Even if you can memorize it after 2, 3, 5 days, you might forget this one. So better you understand how we got this formula through this process, correct? Or if you want to remember something, try to remember this formula, correct? So I could write let's say r2 by r1 means radius of second species by radius of first species, means radius of any orbit of any species by radius of other orbit of other species. I can write it as n2 square by z2, here z1 by n1 square. That I can write, because constant value, it will be same. Like we can get this expression from this one or this one. We will understand what does it mean when we will go through a few questions. Okay, let's start solving one problem, 1 or 2 problems I'll take, and then we will move on. Okay, so question number 1, write the radius of first 4 orbits of hydrogen, that will be your classwork. Second, helium positive. Third one, lithium dipositive. Fourth one, beryllium tripositive. That will be your homework. Okay. Question number 2. If radius of third shell of helium positive is x, let's say 10 units, I write. I'm just writing any random value, or if I write x, that will be fine, right? Let's say it is x. Then what will be radius of fourth shell of lithium dipositive ion? Question number 2. Question number 3. Calculate volume of third shell of helium positive ion. There are 3 questions. You have 3 minutes. Just get the answers quickly. You can calculate these, right? Just do it. Yes, Likita.
First answer.
Hmm.
Radius of first orbital is 0.529 angstroms. Radius of second
One
orbital
second.
is 2.116 angstroms.
0.
Third orbital first orbital
53 angstrom,
0.529,
2.13 angstrom,
4.761,
4.761,
8.464.
8.464. What kind of pattern do you observe? Is it increasing linearly? No.
Yes.
No, not linearly. Not an arithmetic progression you are getting. Like the difference here, that is around 1.5. Here more than 1.5, like around 2.5. Here it is more than 2.5 again. Right? Radius, it is increasing exponentially. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. This, or basically you can write 1 into 0.53, 4 into 0.53, 9 into 0.53, and 16 into 0.53. Yes. For second one,
2.116. Second question.
Yes.
No, I did not, sir.
You just do it. anyone else getting answers? Hasini, Nitish, Vinati, anyone? First question is easy only, right? Z value for hydrogen you have to take as 1. Now R will be what? N square into that constant. Constant is 0.53 angstrom only. So n square you can take 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 orbits you are taking. So 1 square, 2 square, 3 square, 4 square, like that. First one is easy. Second one, what you are going to do? You are not going to calculate value of x. Correct? What you are going to do? You are going to just compare radius of helium, third shell of helium with the fourth shell of lithium plus 2. That's it. So just get the answers quickly. Okay, I'll be back in 1 minute. You just try to get the answers. Yes, for the second one or third one, anyone getting answer? Guys, you are taking too much time. These are easy problems only. Just try to be quick. Should I solve? If you are unable to solve, just let me know so that we'll save some time. I'll solve these for you. Yes, Likita?
Third one.
Third one I should solve? Okay, third one you are giving me answer. Yes.
56.5.
56.5.
0.5. 5 to 9. It continues.
5 to 9.
Hmm.
5 to 9, then
Angstrom cube.
angstrom cube. Okay.
Volume.
Okay. Better you give answer better whenever questions are asked, no? Better
Liter.
you give answer in either liter or centimeter cube or meter cube or decimeter cube, like that, right? So angstrom cube you can convert easily into meter cube, 10 to the power minus 3 meter cube. So sorry, minus 10 meter cube. So basically it will come out to be 10 to the power minus 30 meter cube, like that, right?
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yes, for the second one. Guys, let me ask you once again, if you are facing any difficulty in solving these problems, just let me know, so that I'll solve these. You can do practice for further more questions. First one and third one, anyone getting problem? Like all of you, are you getting these questions? First one, first of all, anyone now stop writing, stop doing whatever you are doing. Okay. First one, anyone having any problem? Just raise your hand so that I could discuss first one. First one, no problem, I suppose. Second one, anyone having problem? Okay. Second one, 32x by 27. Very good, Srija. I'll just write 32 by 27x. Very good, nice. Do you want me to discuss second problem? Any of you? Can you explain second one? Okay, I'll explain second one. See, either first I'll tell you the general method how to do that. See, if I'm writing radius of third shell of lithium, so radius of third shell of helium, that I can write some constant into n square by z, or I can write c. N square is what? Which shell that electron is in? Third shell. 3 square by z, that is 2 atomic number of helium. Correct? That we can write. Next, here similarly, radius of lithium only we are taking, no? Radius of fourth shell of lithium plus 2. Okay. Radius of fourth shell of lithium plus 2. That also I can write as C n square of lithium by z. That I can write as C into n, which shell? Fourth shell. 4 square by z. Z of lithium, that is 3. Equation 1, equation 2. If I divide equation 1 by equation 2, I'll get radius of third shell of helium positive divided by radius of lithium plus 2 fourth shell. That will be C to C will get cancelled out. This C to this C, it will get cancelled out. What we are going to obtain? 3 square by 2 into 3 divided by 4 square. Is that correct? Or simply if I want to write, let's say R2 by R1, if I want to write, that will be coming out to be N2 square by Z2, means this 2 in this side, that is defining which atom we are talking, okay, or which species we are talking, multiplied by Z1 by N1 square. Is that correct or not? Or you can write R2 by R1 can be written as N2 by N1 square into Z1 by Z2. Like that I can write. Any confusion, any doubt? Correct. So this value I can write, this radius of helium, it is given. So x by, let's say this is y, that comes out to be how much? 27 by 32. This implies y comes out to be 32 by 27 x. Any confusion, any doubt? Right now I have tried to explain as well as to solve. When next time onwards you will be solving, you are going to involve only this single step. In this single step only you are going to get the answer, okay? Not this you don't need to go through. You can do that just by going through this particular formula. I suggest you again to go through this formula only. Almost 90% problems can be solved related to this radius part with the help of this formula. Is it clear? Any confusion, any doubt? Just check the solution once again. Any confusion, any doubt? Third one, yes, after this one, anyone having doubt in third one? Third one you can solve, all of you. Anyone having doubt in third question? Third one, no doubt, right? Let's move on now. Here, next part I will take this expression for velocity. So one of those two variable we have figured out. We want to know the radius and radius of or the distance at which that electron is revolving around the nucleus in that stationary orbit. That part we have figured out. Second, so basically we are saying that in a particular element, a given electron, it will be revolving around the nucleus at certain distance only, not at arbitrary distance. Like in hydrogen electron, it will be either revolving at 0.53 angstrom or it will be revolving at 2.13 angstrom, like that. Okay, then now I want to know that what will be the velocity, how we can define expression for velocity. See, we know that velocity is equals to nh by 2 pi mr. and expression for radius we have already defined. So let's take these two things. Here we are writing velocity is equals to nh upon 2 pi mr. Isn't that right? And radius we have defined as n square h square upon 4 pi square k z e square into m. Next, what you have to do, that you know, we have to just put this value in this expression. By putting this value in this expression, we are going to obtain v will be equals to nh upon 2 pi m, r value n square h square upon 4 pi square k z e square m. M to m will get cancel out, n square h square to nh will get cancel out, 2 pi to 2 pi will get cancel out. Isn't that correct? So what will be left behind? We can write velocity, it will be coming out to be this 2 pi k z e square upon n h. Any confusion, any doubt? Again, we know the value of pi, we know the value of k, we know the value of e, we know the value of h. So can I write, I can put these values and I can write velocity, it will be coming out to be some random constant, not random constant but some constant c2 multiplied by z by n. Can I write in this particular way? Any confusion, any doubt? Now this value of c2 I can calculate. Value of c2 I can write as 2.18 into 10 to the power 6 meter per second. By putting these values, see, this will be one of your homework, that you are going to calculate these values of c1 and c2 by putting all these values by yourself. Okay, and you will verify whether these values, whatever I have written, they are correct or not. Okay, tomorrow morning you let me know that whether these values which we have written here, they are correct or not. Any confusion, any doubt? That we can write? Okay then. So if I remove this constant, again I can write velocity, it will be directly proportional to z by n. Now for a given element means z will be constant. For example, hydrogen, z will be 1, right? Velocity of electron, it will be inversely proportional to n, which means I can write as number of orbit or shell increases, as number of orbit or shell increases, this what should I say, velocity will decrease. Velocity, it will decrease. Same way we can define angular velocity also. Omega will be equals to VR, correct? Now this you can observe in your fan. Right now here radius, it will be increasing exponentially, so there won't be a linear relation between omega and r. But in the fan, just look up omega, angular velocity of every point on that blade, it will be constant. Let's say this is the fan, like angular velocity of every point, it will be same, d theta by dt, it will be coming out to be same for each point, but r is increasing while moving from center to the end of the blade. So as this r value is increasing, omega is constant. Omega here and omega here, both are constant. Omega I can write as what? VR or V1 R1, here V2 R2. Omega 1, omega 2. Omega 1 and omega 2 are same. So as R2 by R1 will be greater than 1, which mean V1 by V2, that we can define. That will also be greater than 1, which means V1 will be greater than V2. So which part of this blade will be moving with faster velocity, that we can define. correct? So velocity, it will be increasing. Omega we can define. Is that clear? Any confusion, any doubt? This thing you try to observe by yourself. Okay, I'll just clean this one. Now, number of different things we can define. Once we have come to know about velocity and radius, these two expressions we have defined. Now first we will solve few problem, and the things which we can define, that we will discuss in next class along with the energy. Let's take a few problem. I'll give you a few problem, and then remaining part we will discuss in next class. Okay. Question number 1. Calculate velocity of electron revolving around velocity of electron revolving around nucleus in first 4 orbits of first one, again hydrogen, you will calculate now. Second, helium positive, lithium dipositive, beryllium tripositive. This will be your homework. Question number 2, again, if velocity of electron in third shell of helium positive is x, then what will be the velocity of electron revolving in third shell of beryllium tripositive. Question number 3, calculate. I'm not asking frequency, but let's calculate time taken. If I can calculate time taken, I can calculate frequency as well. Calculate time taken by electron to complete one revolution in third shell of helium positive. These questions you can solve.